Safety instructions for voyages with small vessels. Identify the vessel. Write the name and call sign of the vessel, or identify the group of vessels, for example, 5 vessels. Identification of the ship owner. The ship's owner is SBJV IS, located Brovian 16A, Vordingborg 4760 in Denmark. Ownership of the navigational activities. Marine Supervisor Jesper Kraft Andersen in Denmark. Telephone 53739874. OHS Manager Peter Nordstrom in Denmark. 53739825. Navigation activities. Navigation equipment. For all SBJV vessels, the captain must ensure that the vessel has all the necessary navigation equipment to safely navigate the vessel. Additionally, the captain must maintain situational awareness to avoid any risk of collision, as dictated by the waters to be navigated. As a rule, this equipment should meet or exceed the SOLAS standards. Communication equipment. For all SBJV vessels, the captain must ensure that the vessel has all the necessary communications equipment to maintain reliable communication as dictated by the distances and locations involved. Weather reports. For all SBJV vessels, the captain must make frequent weather checks before departure and while underway during offshore work. The captain shall immediately report it verbally by VHF radio to the OHS Marine Department if the captain decides to stay in port due to the weather forecast. Identification of risks. Fire, collision, notification, and evacuation. Each SBJV motorized vessel must develop specific procedures for the crew and passengers to follow when fire is discovered or a collision occurs. All crew and passengers must be trained in these procedures prior to embarking for the first time. Immediately call for help by VHF radio on channel 16. If it is a small fire, attempt to extinguish it with a portable fire extinguisher. Abandon vessel. When the captain gives orders to abandon the vessel, keep calm and organized. Always carry your SOLAS life jacket, as it keeps you floating with your head up. While waiting for rescue units to arrive, maintain a continuous visual watch for the rescue vessels. Measures to counter the risks involved. Safety awareness. Safety aspects of every operation should be routinely reviewed by all team members. Learning to move around your vessel and boarding or disembarking will pose many new challenges. When boarding or disembarking, always face the platform or ladder and wait for the instructions from the crew. Always hold on to the rails with both hands. Only hand tools may be carried during transfer. Large objects can be hoisted assembly line fashion. Measures to reduce the risks involved. General safety precautions. Many injuries and accidents can be prevented by correct instruction and use of approved tools. The following are a few common safety practices for vessels at sea. When the vessel is underway, always remain seated with your life jacket on. The captain of the SBJV vessel must always require all crew and passengers to wear a work life jacket while the vessel is underway and during transfer. In case of emergencies, the SOLAS life jacket will already be worn by all crew and passengers. Each SOLAS life jacket is equipped with a light and a whistle. Accidents are minimized by correct instruction and proper use of tools. Description of the vessel and the equipment. Maintenance. Procedures for the maintenance of the vessel and equipment are necessary to ensure that SBJV vessels are maintained in conformity with relevant rules and regulations and SBJV specific requirements. To meet these requirements, vessel-specific procedures must be prepared to ensure that inspections of the vessels, the onboard equipment, and spare parts are held at defined regular intervals. Such an inspection should cover machinery, equipment, and the vessel's structure. Shipbuilders and manufacturers' operational procedures should be available for reference. Description of the vessel and the equipment. Onboard safety requirements. Prior to boarding, the captain must conduct a safety briefing for all crew and passengers. The safety briefing should cover life jackets, fire extinguisher locations, man overboard procedures, VHF radio operations, fuel shutoff location, motor on-off switches, etc. All passengers must remain seated during the sea voyage, and life jackets are mandatory at sea. Boarding or disembarking may only be done after instruction from the captain. The crew and its competences. The Danish Maritime Authority determines the safe manning of each individual vessel in accordance with the vessel's type and shipping area. The captain and crew need to be approved by the SBJV Marine Department for the operation of the specific type of vessel they are assigned to. The approval process must include total boating experience, a required knowledge of the specific vessel, and the waters involved. The captain is responsible for periodic refresher training of the crew. This training should match the skill level of the type of vessels, navigation training, man overboard, and first aid procedures and exercises. Operational procedures to be observed by the crew and the passengers. Proper clothing. SBJV requires Class 3 personal protective equipment on site, both onshore and offshore. The crew and passengers are recommended to wear appropriate clothing that provides protection against wind, rain, and sun. Proper head covering can be necessary in the winter period. It is mandatory to wear a work life jacket while the vessel is underway and during transfer. Hypothermia. The condition of hypothermia results when body temperature is reduced because of exposure to cold water or air. While at sea, it is important to remember that exposure to cold water causes body heat loss 25 times faster than exposure to cold air. Procedures to ensure that it is possible to rescue persons in case of an accident. The captain must immediately call VHF radio channel 16 in case of emergency. The following must be included in this initial verbal report: the vessel's name, the name of the person reporting the incident, the number of people on board, the date and time of the incident, the vessel's location, summary of the emergency, type and severity of the emergency, any fatalities, injuries, or illness, any vessel damage, and what assistance may be needed. Immediately after the emergency call on VHF channel 16, the captain must call the SBJV emergency response team on a channel to be provided by SBJV. The numbers for the Maritime Assistance Service, MAS, in Denmark 72850370, report to the on-duty officer, and the Joint Rescue Coordination, JRCC, phone 112, or in Denmark 72840000, again report to the officer on duty. Procedures to ensure that it is always possible to call for assistance in case of accidents. Describe how it is possible to call for assistance. The captain must immediately report verbally by VHF to OHS Marine Department if evacuation from the site or vessel is required. The following must be included in this initial verbal report: the vessel's name, the number of persons on board, the name of the person reporting the incident, the date and time of the incident, the vessel's location, a summary of the emergency, the type and severity of the emergency, any fatalities, injuries, or illness, any vessel damage, and what assistance may be needed. Procedures to ensure that information about the number of people on board is known, updated, and easily accessible in case of a rescue operation. Number of people on board. On board the vessel, all crew and passengers must register both when boarding and disembarking. The registration system will keep a precise record of all scanned personnel and their whereabouts. Logbook. The captain shall maintain a formal logbook with the exact number of people on board, the duration of the voyage, and the planned route. Other records can be safety and firefighting training refresher course documents, etc. Procedures to ensure that safety instructions are always given to new people on board before the start of the voyage. Entrance to the site will only be possible after completing the mandatory health and safety induction given by the OHS department. Each employer, contractor, or subcontractor is responsible for ensuring that those employed on site have received instruction in relation to the contents of health and safety. The captain must conduct a safety briefing prior to embarking and disembarking all crew and passengers. The safety briefing must cover life jackets, the fire extinguisher locations, man overboard procedures, VHF radio operations, fuel cutoff location, motor on-off switches, etc. Safety induction and safety briefing will be registered in SmartGuard under offshore work. Procedures describing how to follow up on unintended incidents or accidents. Safety observer. The captain of the vessel must register unintended incidents by using the safety observer. All observations in the safety observer will be processed by the OHS and the Marine Department.